Namaskar. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita online classes. Today marks our final webinar before Jayaji's US tour in April. For those in the US, dive into India's spiritual legacy at the in-person talks by Jayaji. Join her in Virginia, Maryland, Washington DC, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Bay Area, New Jersey, and New York. Not in the US? Deepen your study with Jayaji's books and video talks. Order your copy at vedantavision.org. We'll share the updated US lecture itinerary on the WhatsApp community now. Forward it to your loved ones in the US. I request Jayaji to continue chapter 3.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Any questions? Yeah.
How to make ourselves realize that we are Atman in our day-to-day life?
Question is, in our day-to-day life, how can we realize that we are Atman? So, in our daily life, what do we think? We think body most of the time, a little bit of the time mind, and very little intellect. Now, for us to think of Atman, there has to be something that tells us this is not everything in life. There has to be something beyond, which is called mumukshatva, the desire for liberation, the restlessness with the material world. If you don't have that, you will not move. So there are people who are quite content. What I mean by content is they are involved in, engaged with, attached to body, mind, intellect, physical, emotional, intellectual things. So there is no pressure to think of anything else. So how do we think of Atman? First, we must have that urge to break free from body, mind, intellect, from the material world. And that can happen only when you understand the limitations. You can only do so much with the body. You can only enjoy so much with the body. The mind has its own limitations, its restrictions. So also with the intellect. And most importantly, everything that the body, mind and intellect offer is passing, ephemeral. And sooner or later you have to leave everything behind and go. So the question then comes, then why must I invest all my energy in this? At least some of my attention should be invested in something that I am going to carry with me. No? So there is that fanatic attachment to material things, and you don't think of anything other than that, because the law is as you think, so you become. You think small, you become that. You think of the body, you become that. And everywhere you go, you find this obsession with just body. I've just come from a condolence meet. And if you think, here is a person who invested his energies, his time, his effort on the world, on family, on various things, business, so on and so forth. Now what has happened? So he's moved on, right? And everything he was attached to has been left behind. So then you think, is it worth it? Because you don't know when the end will come. It may come now, it may come 10 years from now. Whenever it comes, you have to leave everything behind. See, the problem is we don't think. So all the people, hundreds of people who came for that condolence meet, went, did one namaste, went through the motions and went back to what? Material world. There is no thinking. That is the problem. And then you get stuck to your own thing. Oh, I don't want this. I don't want that. I will not help you. Okay? Simple thing, we asked that this, see, the intention was to help spread this knowledge to people, as many people as possible. So we said anybody who asks questions, instead of just like just now you asked a question, I had to repeat the question. Instead, it will be nice if the person who's asking the question, that person is recorded while he is asking the question. To which you say, oh, please don't photograph me. Arey, you think you're, what is the name of that actress? Elizabeth Taylor. You think you're Elizabeth Taylor? I don't mean you. Whoever said it. Or you think you're Trump, that you have to, I don't want my photograph to come. Hell with you here. Who wants your photograph? I don't mean that literally. What I mean is, you can't cooperate to that extent. Fine. We won't record it. It's not that we can't do without you. It's not that you're playing such a stellar role in the whole thing. But little bit, tiny bit of stretching to serve a cause you can't do. It all begins with that, you know. It all begins with the attitude of giving. If you don't have that attitude of giving, you can say goodbye to development. You can say goodbye to your own success. You live like a cockroach and die like one. That's it. So how to think of Atman? Start by developing the attitude of giving. And I don't mean giving to this cause, please. I'm not talking about this at all. It's just attitude of giving. You come in a taxi, saying a nice word to the taxi driver, how does it kill you? That is attitude of giving. To be compassionate with people. You know, in this heat, you look at a taxi driver, 10 hours a day he is driving that taxi. Of course, he'll be in a bad mood. So if he says something nasty to you, it's okay. You don't have to fight. That is the attitude of giving. In little things. Somebody here in the class coughs. You have water. Give the water. That is attitude of giving. When a person has that attitude of giving, that person blooms. That person flourishes. That person succeeds. That person is happy. That person thinks of Atman. Then love, reaching out to people with love, loving what you're doing. This morning I was talking to a lady who does some clothing. Her business is in clothing. And I said, if you love what you're doing, if you love your customer, then your attention will be on how do I make this as comfortable as possible for the customer. Isn't it? That is love for the customer. Otherwise, you will say that whichever way it goes, let the customer take it or leave it. That's how we function, no? Indians. You manufacture a product, you must think of how convenient is it for the customer. Like Steve Jobs said, you don't start with technology and shove it down the customer's throat. You look at what the customer needs and see how your technology can fill that gap, fill the need. So Atman is a far cry, you forget about that. Start with basics. Develop the attitude of giving. Include more and more people in your circle of love, and understand that everything in the world is temporary, passing. It will go. Today you are in good health, don't take it for granted that it will last forever. Suddenly something might happen, and so it begins with little things. And then slowly your vision expands and says, my God, this world is beautiful, but there is something beyond the world. What is that? It's a good thought that you are thinking, how do I think of Atman? But to get there, you have to start with something else. So people get there, but they don't think of basics. I'm glad you asked that question. Any other question? Yeah. The question is, we are constantly saying, study the Bhagavad Gita. What is meant by study of the Bhagavad Gita? So, first of all, you must understand that the Bhagavad Gita needs interpretation. You can't just pick up the original and read it, for the simple reason that it is written in a language that you don't know, Sanskrit. Also, because of the passage of time, the terminology is changed. Like what they meant at that time is not what we understand it. It's not the literal translation. You have to get the spirit of it. So you need someone who to interpret it, to understand it, get the spirit of it and convey it in a manner that you and I can easily understand. Now once you get this, once you get an interpretation that appeals to you, then you have to read it, listen to it, watch it, depends on what you're doing. And then pick up one or two ideas. Like every author or every speaker wants to convey, let's say, one point, but then he dresses it up. It's like a salad dressing, you know what I mean? When you're presenting a meal, you don't just cook it and this is it, eat it. You present it well, and your whole experience of eating changes with the presentation. Similarly, an author or a speaker dresses it up so that it conveys the main meaning. So now when you listen or read, you have to extract that. What is the core message in this verse? You get it? Write it down. Actually write it down. So in a session of reading or listening, you may come up with, let's say, 5 or 6 points, or 3 or 4 points that have really made an impact on you. And during the day, then you finish. That session is over. But after the session is over, you pick up 1 or 2 ideas and you ruminate over it, reflect over it, and think, how do I apply this principle in my life? Experiment with it. Exactly as you do with a science. When you study chemistry, you can't just stop with theoretical knowledge. You go to the lab You actually experiment with it. And then you say, this is the conclusion. Now I know that water consists of hydrogen and oxygen. 2 atoms of hydrogen combine with 1 atom of oxygen to make a molecule of water. Then it sticks here. Same thing you must do with this. Experiment with the idea, apply it in your life, or see how it is applied or not applied in the world. And that's how you learn. So this reflection or manana is very important. And then you become it. Nididhyasana is like it merges with you. You become one with it. You don't let go till that happens. So it's not just studying or reading and you say, I know the Gita. Rubbish, you know. You know when you live it. That's why this repetition is necessary. Mananam simply means repetition. And in our tradition, when you complete a chapter, you recite the first verse to indicate to ourselves that our study of the chapter has not ended, it's only begun. It will end when? When? On realization. So you only recite the first, you don't recite the last. That's a beautiful way of conveying that your study has just started, not ended. It's like, Bhimsen Joshi, the master in classical music, was asked a question by somebody, I don't know what the question was, but he said, I have just now begun to understand Rag Yaman. Rag Yaman is the first rag that is taught to students. And here is a master who says, I've just begun to understand Rag Yaman. This is the attitude we must have throughout our lives. I've just begun to understand life. Okay? Any other question? Alright, we move to verse 6.
कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते.
One who controls the organs of action while mentally dwelling on the senses is deluded. Such a one is called a mithyachara, hypocrite. Very strong language for a person of Krishna's caliber. So what he is saying here is, see, earlier he has said that not even for an instant can you remain without action, and the quality we are helplessly compelled to act according to our gunas. So now, in the name of spirituality, the vast majority of humanity, we follow verse 6, which is, what do? One who controls organs of action while mentally dwelling on it. See, if you have a desire for a particular thing, you will think of the object. And you can't prevent, because the thought flow begins with the desire. Now, in the name of self-control or in the name of spirituality, the only thing you can do is block the manifesting from the thought to action. So how does it work? It starts with vasana. So when you have a vasana for, let's say, chocolate, you will think of chocolate. Even when you are sitting here, you will think of chocolate because you have a vasana for it. And that as you invest in that thought, the thought then becomes a strong thought flow, which is called desire, and ultimately it manifests as action. Now the only thing you can do, the only thing you know is blocking that from desire to action. So I have a vasana for chocolate, I think of chocolate, I have a desire for chocolate. All this I don't know how to control. But desire to action I control. No, I can't eat sweets, I can't eat chocolate. Such a person is a hypocrite, says Krishna. One who mentally indulges, physically restrains. Moodhatma, Vimoodhatma. It's such a strong word. It's foolish, utterly stupid. Because it doesn't help you. And that's all that we're doing. Mithyachara, hypocrite. So there are only two types of people. One, indulge, get neutralized, don't enjoy. You understand what neutralization is? Excessive indulgence leads to the decrease of enjoyment till it becomes zero. So you indulge, but you don't enjoy. Second variety, minority of people, handful of people, deny themselves, get frustrated, don't enjoy. So in short, nobody in the world enjoys. Who enjoys? Only a Vedantin. So in verse 6, what we learn is, you have to go home and think, what are the areas in which I am a hypocrite? This is what Osho was a master at, pointing out hypocrisy among people. And he did it in a very dramatic way. But you must understand. And therefore, never say that I don't have a desire for it. You don't know. Because the vasana, the desire, manifests only when there is an opportunity for it. Only when the sense object is available. And you have the means to enjoy. So if you don't have the means I don't just mean money. You have the capacity to enjoy. We have the capacity to enjoy only when we are young, right? Up to the 40s, you have the capacity to enjoy. After that, well before that, the enjoyment has gone down. By the time you are 95, you can't enjoy anything. So you have to have the object before you. You must have the capacity to enjoy, and then you feel I really don't want it. That is a person who's developed. Otherwise, see, most of our vasanas are in the subconscious. They haven't yet come up to the surface. Thank God for that. They come to the surface only when the environment is conducive. And then if you say, no, I must not do it, and you only control the physical contact, you are mentally indulging. So you are only a hypocrite. So you have to think, am I a hypocrite? Or do I indulge and get neutralized? These are the only two varieties. Then how do you go about it? What is Karma Yoga then? He spells it out in verse 8, yeah.
Is it possible to know the vasanas that we block unconsciously?
You don't know the vasanas that are in your subconscious. You can't control. What do you mean by control unconsciously?
Is it possible to know? You can't know.
Repeat your question.
Is it possible to know your vasanas? That unconsciously it's there, but you don't know.
Is it possible to know your vasanas when they have not manifested? No, it's not possible. Because what is in your subconscious? Vasana is something that you cannot know unless it manifests. So the first manifestation is thought. So if you're quick to pick it up, then you know, yes, I have a vasana for it. like let's say you have never had the opportunity to buy a car, so you have not thought of it. But suddenly, let's say you develop the means to have it. Then you know, do I have a vasana for the car or not? Yeah.
So what I understood was that mentally you indulge, physically you restrict, then you reduce. So what's the answer there? You mentally indulge, physically also indulge a little until your mind says enough. That's what you're saying. Like,
No.
like ice cream. When I take one spoon of ice cream, I say, okay, now I can.
No.
Because if I have too much ice cream, then it's negative.
No. The answer is coming, the next verse. Yeah.
When we were learning about sense control, we learned that the first step to controlling a desire is to remove the objects of desire from the area and then to keep saying no. So, for example, take the example of an addict who likes alcohol, and then you remove the bottles first, and then you keep saying no. Then you may indulge later, but that saying no helps.
No, you've got it all wrong. That is not self-control. You are referring to a verse in the second chapter. So the question is, what she's saying is, we earlier referred to self-control as first step is to remove the object from your environment. That may be, but you have to work with yourself. That has to be followed up with working with the desire so that you pick up a higher desire, understand the futility of the lower desire till it is out of your system. But that is in a case where the desire is so strong that you have to follow this. Now here we are talking of something else. So you see, this is a typical case where you are connecting things which are unrelated. Then you get confused. Don't do that. You understand a verse by itself, a concept by itself, and then you move to the next concept. Then you can understand. What we discussed in chapter 2 holds still, which is the formula for self-control. Formula 64 is, don't allow existing desire to directly fuel action. Scan it through the intellect. Number 2, don't allow a fresh experience to create a new desire in you. How do you do that? By lingering in the enjoyment of that. That is true. But here he is speaking of something else. Like you have a desire, you block it at the physical level. You are a hypocrite because you are mentally indulging, physically restraining. Then the question he asked is, the next verse, verse 7. What then constitutes karma yoga? Because see, karma yoga is control of desires, which is, you must identify your strongest desire, swadharma, pursue it in the area of your swadharma, fix a higher ideal. So you are not thinking of yourself, you are thinking of others. So and continue working in your swadharma. So your strong desires get fulfilled. It doesn't backfire on you as more desire because your attention is on the higher. That is karma yoga. Anyway, now let's see what it is. Verse 7.
यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैर्कर्मयोगम् असक्तः स विशिष्यते.
But, O Arjuna, one who directs the organs of action to karma yoga, while controlling the senses with the mind excels. So what is he saying here? There are three ways of dealing with desire. One, mind and body indulge, you create more desires, acquire more desires. This is what all of us are doing. Second, body withdraws, mind indulges, you're a hypocrite. Means desire still remains, you're doing nothing about it. Third, body acts out the desire, it is the mind that withdraws. It's a brilliant way of dealing with the desire. You get it? Let's say you have a desire for ice cream. So you say it's a powerful desire, I want to get rid of it, I want it out of my system. The desire, not the ice cream. So what do? You say, you enter the contact, sense contact, you eat ice cream. But your attention is on getting rid of that desire. So you fix a higher desire. In this case, because we're talking about food, it could be fitness. I want to be healthy, I want to be fit. And I know that eating ice cream or sweet is not congruous with health. So I want it out of my system. So I go through that experience. I enjoy the ice cream thoroughly. But because the mind is not indulging in it, you don't acquire more desires. Your mind is on health. That desire gets fortified and you become free from desire for ice cream. This is a very practical thing. You must try it out in your life. And if you do it the right way, you can become free from the desire. You can enjoy the object. No problem. So her question is, what did you say? Segregate the desire from the object. No, you're not doing that. You are enjoying the object. Ice cream is the object. Desire for ice cream is the desire. Because, see, there are two ways of dealing with desire. One is sublimation, which is the best. You understand, sweet, not good for me. It doesn't gel with my desire for health. So if your desire for health is strong enough, even if your desire for ice cream is strong, you're able to get over it, sublimate it. But you're not able to, because of two reasons. Your desire for health is not strong enough and your desire for ice cream is strong. So what happens? You have to go through that experience. So you fulfill the desire with the mind on the higher. Your mind is on health, but you are eating ice cream. And not all the time. So it's the intellect that decides when to contact the object, how often to contact. And after the experience, the intellect then goes over the experiences of what is the big deal about eating ice cream? What did it do for me? Can I do without it? What if I had not eaten the ice cream? My health would have improved. I would be fitter. You know, things, you've got to lecture to yourself. It's what you say to yourself that matters. Right? Similar, it could be anything. You could go shopping. You could go sightseeing. You could run after earning money, whatever it is. But this is the principle. So either you sublimate the desire or you go through the action with the mind on the higher. Then the desire gets fulfilled. It doesn't create fresh desire in you. Yeah. This is applicable for everything, all desires.
Can you explain more on the emotional desires than the sense
Emotional desire means attachment. Okay? Like for instance, a mother is extremely attached to her child. First, she must gain knowledge. Knowledge that it is not the child, it is me, it is my dependence, it is my lack of self-sufficiency that has resulted in the attachment with the child. And the result of that is that I am a slave to the child. And that's not a nice thing. I'm not happy with it. Because the child has the upper hand over me. Then the mother has to think, the child is available to me or the child is feeding me only now. If the child grows up like a 1-year-old child is constantly running around the mother, for how long? For a very short time. When the child grows to, let's say, school going, then friends mean more than the mother. So the child is constantly craving for friends. And then teenage life, though, the mother becomes a positive nuisance, interferes with her desires. And then the child gets married and mother is out of the picture altogether. So the mother must understand this while the child is saying mama this, mama that. So there is an analysis. And then if you understand it properly, you will say, no, I must become self-sufficient. This is not a nice space to be in. But because you are dependent, at that time you feed, you go through the desire. But your mind must be on the higher. Otherwise, there is no hope in life. Whatever the desire is, whether it is for a physical thing, emotional is even worse, intellectual is much worse. You're stuck, you're horribly dependent, you're a slave to every little thing in the world. It's not a nice spot to be in. Like your health. Anytime your health might go. Doctor says, take this test. Test comes negative, finished, your whole life is gone. It could be anything. It could be your 5 arteries blocked. And you have fancy plans to go on a holiday in May to whatever. Everything goes out of the window, right? So, you've got, without Vedanta, you can't live life. So, you better get your act together. And the older you are, the closer you are to calamity, to things going wrong. And I can't see many people here who are on the right side of 50. We are all on the wrong side of 50, correct? So get your act together. Yeah.
This is a different question from what we are discussing. Now there are times when we are working and there are times when we kill time. To plug that, do we make a schedule beforehand and decide that this is what you're going to do in your free time? Is there any tips like that?
See, the question is, there are times when you are busy and there are times when you are doing time pass. So, how do you go about it? Do you make a timetable before? Yes. You must have, like they say, don't start the day without finishing it on paper. Means you must have a clear idea of what you're going to do through the day. And if you have spare time, that it's not a crime. You can use it gainfully, listen to uplifting music, read a book that you haven't had time for. So you must always have things to do, or that I need to clear my cupboard and thank God I have the time to do it, remove the clutter from my thing. So it's not a bad idea to have time, but you must use it gainfully. It could even be, I haven't watched a movie for a long time, so let me watch a movie, whatever. So it's not that you should be busy all the time. That's where people get it all wrong. What's wrong with having free time? Use it well. Even if you're just chilling, nothing wrong with it. Provided you are not neglecting your duties otherwise. No one in the world said that you can't sit and watch the sunset. That's a beautiful thing to do. You get inspired. Okay? So, verse 7 says, one who directs the organs of action to Karma Yoga. What does Karma Yoga mean? Means identifying your Swadharma, your area of passion. In that, fixing a higher ideal and working towards it. So what you're doing is, you're fulfilling your Swadharma Vasana with your mind on the higher. So your existing Vasana gets fulfilled, you don't acquire fresh Vasana. And any activity, anything that you do which helps you to reduce your desires and vasanas is yoga, karma yoga. Simple. So he says, who directs the organs of action to karma yoga while controlling the senses with the mind. So that is the key. You're not controlling with the body, you're not physically withdrawing from the object. It is the mind that is withdrawing. Because please remember, it is not what your body does that matters. It is where your mind is that matters. Your body can do anything. So, most of us focus only on the action. We don't focus on where the mind is. That's what the problem is. So people say, oh, I've joined or I've started an NGO and I'm working towards this, that and the other. But deep down, what is there? Desire, it's a selfish desire. I want name, I want fame, I want to be recognized by society, I want to be honored by society. So, are you really doing service? No. Physical action can be anything. What do you really want from that activity? You want things for yourself, so it becomes selfish. Whereas, there could be a person who's doing business, who's very active in business and he's working very hard in that field, and deep down, his intention is only to serve society. Then he is unselfish. So, you have to look at why am I doing what I'm doing, not on what I'm doing. Saha vishishyate, that person excels. What a terminology he uses. The previous verse, mithyachara sochate. That person is called a mithyachara, hypocrite. And here he says, saha vishishyate. So nowhere does he say you have to go to a temple, church or mosque. Nowhere does he say that you have to go to the Himalayas and meditate. No such thing. Plain and simple. Directs your organs of action to karma yoga while controlling the senses with the mind, not the body. It's a beautiful verse. So if you go home and you ask the question, how do I study the Bhagavad Gita? Go home with just this verse 7 and see how you can incorporate this verse in your life and convert whatever you're doing to karma yoga. So this is the beauty of it. Between today and the next week when we meet, just focus on that. So you don't have to change your career, you don't have to change your wardrobe, you don't have to change what you're doing, you simply have to change the attitude with which you are working. And then beauty comes out from you, automatically, naturally. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. That's why thousands of years ago, one tribal woman was so excited to see Lord Rama and tasted berries and gave them. Such a stupid act. But today, we remember it, we get inspired by it, hopefully. And we work towards getting there with the beauty of it. Now with Ram Navami round the corner, what is it that thousands of years ago there was this Lord Ram? What does he signify? How has he shaped Indian thought, culture, character, civilization, right through the ages? What is it that I can gain from it? Think about it. It's not just a holiday that comes once a year, friends. It's a concept, and it's not about, did Ram really exist? Don't get involved in all of this. It's a concept, right, of perfection. How do I incorporate these values in my life? Because these are values that have shaped our country through the ages, not just our country, and through our forefathers to the rest of the world. So it's not just about reclaiming Ayodhya and building a temple there. How do we make our minds Ayodhya? A land free from strife and struggle and war and battle. That is what is raging inside each one of us. Then each one of us becomes an Ayodhya. Then you've conquered. And then you become a living legend. That makes sense. So, verse 7 is an amazing verse. Yes?
The words here, yoga of action, you refer to as karma yoga, right? You expanded that by saying that is identify your swadharma and work for a higher ideal. Is that also what we refer to as nishkama karma?
Okay. Karma yoga, your question is, what is karma yoga and is it the same as nishkama karma? Karma yoga is about moving from, see, there are three types of actions. Selfish action, which is action driven by selfish desire. Unselfish action, it could be the same action, but motivated by an unselfish desire, a desire to benefit others, not just me. It may include me. And then comes selfless desires, which is action not motivated by desire at all. That is nishkama karma. What is nishkama karma? Desireless action. Kama is desire, nishkama desireless, karma action. So what is this concept of desireless action? Because we don't understand that. Where there is no desire, there is no action. So people question that. What do you mean by that? You must have a desire, otherwise you don't act. So, see, you move from selfish desire, we all understand, to unselfish, which means that you have a desire, but you have a desire to benefit a larger cross section of people, not just me. And then comes selfless desire, which is your desire shifts. It's not that you don't have a desire. Your desire shifts from the world to that which is beyond the world. So now you have a desire, but desire for self-realization, desire for Atman, desire to get union with God. Now that desire is beyond the realm of the world. So when you have that desire, it removes all desires for the world. So what are you acting for? What is driving you? Desire for God. But that is not within the world. So as with reference to the world, it is desireless. That is nishkama karma. So that's the highest quality of action. How do you get there? Move from selfish to unselfish, then it becomes selfless. So your vision expands to beyond limitations. Like you work for the world, you work for the well-being of society, you work for the environment, and then the thought occurs to you that the universe is held together by a force beyond the world. What is that? So if I really want to do service or do something for the world, I must get to that point, beyond the world, isn't it? Like people working for the environment, what is that, carbon emissions, carbon footprint, weather change and all of that. Then you start thinking, whatever human beings do, if the earth just shifts slightly towards the sun, all our efforts are gone, right? So what is that force beyond human effort? And when you start thinking of that, your whole perception changes. And your actions gain that power. That is nishkama karma. When you start working for God, you become God. That's an amazing concept. Yeah.
You know, I read an article that there are laborers in Maharashtra who work in the sugarcane fields.
What field?
In the sugarcane fields. And they are forced to work continuously, they and their family. And they are given very little money. They are just abused basically. So when you read something like this, you get that urge to help. But as far as I am concerned, I don't know how to help. So how do I make an impact? Like, do I do my work more diligently so that, like, I don't know how to.
Yes. See, the question is, there is injustice happening all over the world. She gave one example of sugarcane laborers. There are people working in gold mines. There's exploitation everywhere. Now, if you feel deeply about it and you want to correct it, you are helpless. What can you do? Sitting here, you can't help sugarcane farmers. But what you can do, and that is amazing about Vedanta and the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, is what we are trying to do is to change the mindset of people from being exploitative to service minded. So one is to go out there and do service yourself. How many people will you benefit? The other is alongside becoming service minded yourself, that means refining your own service minded nature, you help create thousands of people who want to do service, who don't want to exploit, who want to be fair, who want to be just. Then that will have a much greater impact than just working yourself, right? So the subtler your service, the greater is the impact. So then you have to say, in what field can I serve to have an impact? Because all of us can have an impact. The managing director of a firm can have an impact. The CEO of a bank can have an impact. A servant working in a home can have an impact. You and I can have an impact. So that's why we say identify your swadharma. A musician can have impact. An artist has impact. All of us can have impact if we change our attitude from selfish to unselfish. So first find out what your swadharma is, and in that area do service. So what we are trying to do is to create an army of service-minded people. Remember that in the Ramayana, Rama used or took the help of squirrels and monkeys when he could have easily gone to the kings of various states and gladly they would have helped. So the message is start small with whatever little you can do. Improve that quality and slowly your impact will be there. Like we just said, Shabari is a tribal woman. What impact did she have? So you don't worry about what can I do. Whatever you can do, do it well. And it will have an impact. Next verse.
नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्मज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रापि च ते न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः.
This is another fabulous verse. Perform your obligatory action. Niyatam kuru karmatvam. Indeed, action is superior to inaction. It is not possible to even sustain the body without action. So when he says niyatam karma, he is referring to the highest quality of action, which is obligatory duty, in which you switch lanes. You switch lanes to the fast lane. What is it called? HOV lane. High occupancy vehicle lane. Means in the United States, it's called various terms in various parts of the United States. But basically, if you're driving alone, you have to drive in the other lanes. But you have more than 2 people in your car, you can go in the fast lane. And it makes a huge difference. In big cities like Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, that is to encourage more people to carpool and go together in the car. So, niyatam karma is like that. You immediately shift to the high occupancy vehicle lane. You go fast. And you must actually experience that. When you're in the HOV lane, you just zip past all the other lanes. You get to your destination faster. And obligatory action is like that. So, whatever be your action, whatever be your desire, you just leave desire aside and focus on what is my obligation right now as a member of the family, as a member of this class, as a citizen of the country, as an employee of the company, whatever it is, all put together, we have obligations, right? How many of us can say honestly that I'm fulfilling all my obligations? Nobody. Why? What comes in the way? Desire. So the next level is kamya karma, desire driven activities, and then immediately you slow down. However much effort you put in, it is that wind, what do you call that? Not tailwind helps you. Headwind. However much effort you put in, you find it going is tough. What makes it tough? Desire. Desire comes in the way of your success, desire comes in the way of your happiness. Desire is bad news. And then when desires mount to such an extent that they cannot be fulfilled by ethical, legal, moral methods, you cross the line. You cross the line. Whether it is self-destructive or it is an illegal activity. you destroy yourself. You look at the difference. See Maradona, those of you who know football, fantastically talented person. But in the end, what happened? He destroyed himself through drugs, through all kinds of things, indulgences. Look at Messi. You know how old he is? But what fitness. What a fantastic footballer. Total command of it. Use of the intellect. Elvis Presley. At a young age, he destroyed himself. You know what he did? The prescription drugs he was taking. Lata Mangeshkar, she sang almost till the age of 90. What a career. Hansi Cronje, brilliant footballer, brilliant cricketer, captain of the South African team. Destroyed, got into the murky areas of match fixing. Eventually killed himself or got killed, whatever. Sachin Tendulkar, even today, after the Indian team won the, the Champions Trophy, people are still talking about Sachin Tendulkar. And you look at his life, complete control. Like this. Okay, what is his name? Rajat Gupta. Brilliant career. IIT, IIM, this, that and the other. People in the US, in New York, were bending over backwards to get him on their boards. This was his status. And eventually ended up in prison. On the other hand, look at Ratan Tata. So on the face of it, he was just an industrialist. But what an industrialist. What a reputation he had. And just the Tata group itself. This is the difference, friends. So it's not about the talent you have. It's not about the intelligence you have. It's not about your IQ. It's about what you're using all this for. You could have nothing. You have this one thread of thought for the higher, and by God, you're a changed personality. It's a game changer in your life. But you have to do it. I know so many people here who come diligently week after week to listen, but there is no implementation. What a pity. It's like you earn billions of dollars and you are living the same. You're living in a slum. Of what use is all this? So, focus more on living it, on changing your attitude, and see how your life changes. And then you know what happens? You simply soar above all this petty-mindedness, ego, the rubbish that is prevailing in our society, within our families, inside of us. You have to rise above it. You can't live like a scavenger. There's a video I just watched, short video, about your mindset. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how do you feel. You can feel abundant even when you have nothing. Example, Sudama. You could have so many things, and all of us belong to that category. You have so many things and still feel deficient. I don't have. I wish I had. Then that is a recipe for depression. You look at all the affluent people in the world, okay? Their starting point is because because they are born in affluence. What is the starting point? They go to private schools in America, even in England, Europe, everywhere, all over the world. Here, you go to a fancy IB school. So your parents are dishing out in America on an average $75,000 per year for the education of a child. So by the time 12 years are gone, you calculate how much money has gone. And now because the parents are investing this money, they want a return. So right from the word go, they're after you. You must get good grades, you must study, you must do this, you must do that. So there's pressure on the child. The child doesn't know anything else, so it succumbs to the pressure. And then they go to Ivy League colleges, or they go to Cambridge and Oxford and all this. And they believe that they are better than the rest. Because you go to an ordinary school, your parents are spending maybe $15,000 a year on you, whereas again $75,000. Actually, education is free. And then they go to ordinary state colleges. They go to okay thing. And then what kind of jobs do they get? They get ordinary jobs. These guys get picked up by, what is that? The Goldman Sachs of the world. And then they go around saying, you know what, I'm with Goldman Sachs. But you're a slave. You have to work 14 hours a day to sustain that. And then you have fancy cars and fancy homes and this, that and the other. Then you have to work doubly more to sustain that. And then, after all this, 50% of these guys are clinically depressed. 50% means certifiably depressed. It's not as if the others are happy. They have not reached the stage where a psychiatrist can say, yes, I certify you depressed. That's all. That's the only difference. I've met several of people in this category who look at an ordinary guy and say, any day I will change places with him. Because he doesn't have the pressure to live up to all of this. Isn't it? He can go in any car, it doesn't matter. He can wear anything, he doesn't have to wear designer clothes. Handbag. This morning I was educated on these handbags that cost lakhs. I mean, I don't understand where is the intelligence of people. Because you're running after all this. I have a friend who has 3 sons. Each of her son belongs to this category. Oh, he's earning a fat figure salary. He has the best that the world has to offer. He can holiday in the best places in the world. He sends his children to the best schools in the world. All of this is there. But then what? Depression? So we must all think. Why aren't you there? Because thank God you didn't belong to that category. Really. Thank goodness you don't belong to that. But then we are all aspiring, no? So you go somewhere, you meet someone, you meet an industrialist who's a billionaire, and you come back and say, you know, I had dinner with so and so. Just because you rub shoulders with the guy doesn't mean his billions are transferred to you. So what great thrill does it give you? Huh? And then you talk about it, which is even worse. That means your head is full of busa. See, these things we must think. What is the dinner time conversation? What do you talk about? What goes on in your mind the whole time? If you're thinking of nothing but, what is that, Hermes bags and Mercedes cars, that is where you will be. That's all that you're worth. A little bit of metal and some leather. That's all that you're worth. See, when I talk like this, please don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm negative. It's just that I feel so bad that here you have access to the best. You have access to the spirit. You have the capacity to shake the world. And what are you doing? You would cry if you knew. Fortunately, you don't even realize that. Every one of us here in this room has the capacity of being a world changer like Buddha, like a Shankaracharya, like a Vivekananda. And what are you doing? Sweet nothing. Huh? You're only worrying about where do I go on vacation next year? Don't go on vacation. It's not going to kill you. Don't buy a new car. It's not going to kill you. Don't buy jewelry, for sure don't buy. It definitely won't kill you. You know, it's an amazing thing, this Manoj Kumar Sharma, the 12th failed character. In an interview he said, somebody asked him about corruption. He said, you know, the one thing that leads to corruption is jewelry, gold. So an ordinary police officer or an IAS officer, the one thing you can't afford is to buy jewelry. So you knock it out of your system. He said, when I got married, I asked my wife, is it okay if you don't wear jewelry? No gold, no diamonds. Fortunately, she said, okay. And she doesn't wear. She wears, but it's fake. Everything is fake. So he said, that's a huge chunk off my head. And it's so true what he said. Because if you bring down your desires, there is no temptation to be corrupt. What will you make money for? Isn't it? There is no motivation to do the wrong things in life. And then you're not running after jewelry you will think of something more sensible. That is the problem, friends. You know, your desire is the desire that is causing all the problem. So you must think about your desires and focus on what is important for you. Everything can't be important. You knock off things that are not important for you. It's not important to have a Mercedes or a BMW. Out. Desire for car is out. Do you realize that you sit, even if you have a desire, you sit in a Rolls Royce once, your desire is over, finished. Seriously. And the best thing, if you have a desire, the best way to fulfill it is sit in a Rolls Royce that somebody else has paid for. Desire is over. Huh? You have a desire for a fancy home. One night you spend in somebody's home, you're done. Desire for home is gone. Like this you must think, and then come down to really what really matters. Get after it. Put all your resources in that one desire. Fulfill it. But that's not what you're doing. You're wasting time over unimportant desires. Does it matter whether you eat Chinese food or Indian food? Or Japanese food? Why do you want to pay a premium for Japanese food when you can get perfectly good, healthy, fantastic food at home for 1/100th the price? Do you know during COVID, most people lost weight just eating home food. And then I realized so much of a premium we pay to go and eat out, to become unhealthy and to put on fat, to put on weight? What sense does that make? Think, use your intellect. So it's not that desire is bad across the board. You have a desire to study the Bhagavad Gita, please encourage it. You have a desire to start a school, please encourage it. You have a desire to help girls educate themselves. Even today, girls receive much less of the resources in a family. Because of selfishness, because you believe, hey, ultimately the girl will get married and go somewhere else. Why should I invest money in her? What a horrible attitude to have. So it's not about being aggressive, it's just about education. Any society where the girls are educated achieve things like Kerala, 100% literacy among women. It's a state which is improving. So things like that, and it gives you so much satisfaction at half the price. Thank you.